everybody, welcome to the token panel. So happy to be here. Big shout out to Lucy, who has been killing it on stage today. And we're going to wrap up the day with a really fun panel with some gorgeous gentlemen here. And what we're going to be doing is telling you about the true utility of tokens. We are not talking about Bored Apes. We are not talking about a craze or a hype or making money overnight. We're talking about what the true value of this technology is. Everyone here is going to enlighten you. But quickly, guys, 30 minutes, okay? I'm watching you, Jack. But anyway, to kick things off, I would like to have each of you describe how you are working with tokens with true utility within the organizations that you represent. So I'm going to start with you, Sean, and go down the line.
Okay, so we use tokens to do a couple things, but mainly it's to record and index ownership of an encryption key. And what that means is we have a secure container that's encrypted, and you can put any form of data in it, and so that's where this object layer concept comes from. So what that ultimately means is you have a decentralized media library that the chain is recording and indexing the information around who owns that encryption key. And so all of a sudden we now have this distributed layer, and what it means is you can have an internet where everything is secure. So I can choose, do I decide to have it completely hidden and it's encrypted and nobody sees anything? Normally to have that, I have to give up the ability to communicate. But what the tokens allow us to do is to communicate that ownership and allow it to transition between people.
I think you have a QR code.
Oh, yeah. So the QR code, if you scan that, will give you a copy of our white paper. And so that's stored in an encrypted container. So it's an NFT. It's available. You can check for it on Rarible, but you won't see anything. You'll just see an image. When you go in that, you'll be able to get onto our app. It is a bit clunky. It is the beta right now. So actually, you'll see many of the steps, but the goal is ultimately all of those will be hidden. But what you'll be able to do is see what we mean when we say you can have a secure encrypted container with any data.
Awesome. Thank you. Jackson, please.
Hello, my name's Jack Laskey, and I'm the co-founder and CEO at AssetLayer. And AssetLayer, it's pretty simple what we do. We just make it as simple as possible to create NFTs, integrate them into applications, and for us, what's really important is being able to share those NFTs across applications, because I think, when I think about the value of blockchain, the value of tokens, the value of NFTs, to me, interoperability really is at the forefront of my mind as to why this is such a transformative technology. If you want to experience what we do firsthand, come to our booth on the second level, and we're actually running an NFT photo contest, free to enter. You can win some BSV and get your experience here at the conference memorialized on the blockchain forever.
Very cool. Make sure you guys do that. Very nice. And for you, Holger, please.
Thanks a lot. My name is Holger Vogel. I was, a few days ago, I was working still in the banking industry. I stopped this and will try to get my passion out. I think my passion is it's tokenizing assets, it's called there. And the biggest asset, I think, for me, was all my life is code. Code is so having good code, having code in function and running code, not static code like we saw on the boring apes and all the pictures. This is static code. That can be of value too, and it's tokenized and it's easy. But for me, the dynamics is the key thing that is not done yet. So so to have code running and also have a record of run, because Bitcoin is in principle a perfect record-keeping system. And also for payments, it's really great. And even for small payments, because if you think what levels of code you can tokenize and get a real software market based on pure contributed code, everybody should contribute code there in this ecosystem and earn money from big chunks of code. Maybe you have seen the e-commerce section already cutting code into pieces called headless, serverless, and then they go composable code pieces. And these composable code pieces, they try to change with other companies, buy from other companies, kind of best breed composable code elements can be tokenized, but this is already the big chunks. I'm more interested into slicing these chunks of code into the smallest pieces in principle, because we need to fit those code pieces like Legos And the Lego pieces are the best. Lego pieces are really the smallest pieces you can have, because you can create everything with the smaller pieces. And so with this new technology we have now, because payment, micro-IP, microcode pieces, this new system, I would call it a composable tokenized code system, apply the same theoretical the model of Bitcoin, which is a multi-leader, multi-follower Stackelberg game, giving Bitcoin the resilience. I would apply the same idea to fintech, banking, e-commerce, any IT infrastructure. So please speak to me. I don't have a booth, but yeah.
You can grab them during the drinks. Please, Christopher.
Thanks. Quick show of hands. Who remembers when Donald Trump offered to buy Greenland? Anyone? Hands up. This is participatory before drinks. Yes? You're welcome. 5 days before that, we were in the White House explaining the value of our rare earth mine in Greenland to U.S. national security. So it's Tanbreez mining Greenland AS. We are actual hard rock miners. We are not digital miners. And the application that we're using NFTs for is that we are tokenizing forward production. So for people who, you hear aerospace manufacturers, auto manufacturers, and others saying that, well, if we don't get enough supply chain for more diverse sources than currently exist in a monopolistic world, then we're going to have to invest in mines. Well, they don't actually want to invest in mines. What they want to do is invest in an instrument that will give them offtake when they need it. And that's what we provided. Since we've got 60 to 80% of the world's heavy rare earths outside of China, we have a massive, massive ore deposit against which we are able to basically sell options on forward production. That's what we're doing. So we're using the NFT for that structure. And very briefly, I've heard people say earlier that the NFT got kind of a bad word, to which I respond, one investor who was talking about this to me, as an old commodities trader, said, I don't invest in NFTs. I said, when Enron went bankrupt, did you say, I don't invest in equities? It's just a packaging mechanism. So we're using it, and I refuse to stop calling it an NFT, and I think I'm going to be proven right.
Yes, perfect segue to John over there.
I thought we agreed to call them tats. Totally awesome thing.
We can do that too.
Okay.
SLictionary. Go.
I'm Jack Pitts, co-founder of Structured Linguistics, and our first product is SLictionary, which is an English dictionary online, also iOS app, and it's a way that you all can own your words, literally. And I do get to say literally a lot, because when you own a dictionary, you're the one guy that can get away with it. And basically what we use the NFTs for, which we're now debating whether to call them totally awesome things, because they're not really tokens. A token is something like, when I rode the underground to get here, you get a little coin, well, maybe 20 years ago, so I don't know what London was doing, but in New York it was a little metal coin, literally, and you would put it in the slot, and it would get you a ride from, say, Brooklyn to Manhattan. But the token isn't the ride, right? The token is a representation of the ride, and that's kind of what the word token means. And so what we actually do is, when Becky defines moderator in our dictionary, because she's an amazing moderator, and she knows way more about what that word means than an English professor in Cambridge, who gets paid $400,000 to write these things up, she will actually do a great definition, and we will put it on a coin. So that's sort of like, not wood burning, but if it was a metal coin, the equivalent of a wood burner, she would basically create an entire definition and put it on a coin. And when you take that coin and you show it to some of you who are looking up the word in the dictionary, every time that you hit upon her definition and like it, she gets 7/10 of a penny. So it's kind of like Monopoly, right, where you own the cards. But this thing is the definition. And so that's why my colleague here was going to call it totally awesome thing, because it's not really a token. It's non-fungible, but it's really a non-fungible, totally awesome thing. And the coolest thing about this, the last thing I want to say, is because it's on an actual coin, which roughly works out, depending on the day, to around 40 cents, well, if your coin is not making money on our dictionary because it's a bad definition, you can redeem the coin and get your 40 cents back. And if BSV goes up 1,000 times, then the 40 cents is going to turn into, what, 400, right? And so do you want the cash flows from moderator, or is the definition no good because it's not Becky's and you want to redeem it to get your $400 back? And that helps us out because it gets rid of the bad definitions in the dictionary.
Very good. Thank you, guys. As you can see, this is very, very different than the idea of, I keep picking on Bored Apes, 5 very different definitions of token than thinking of that concept of a Bored Ape. However, collectibles are a big market. People do make some money. But I want to know from our panelists here, what are the Bored Apes missing? What else can we be doing with tokens, with NFTs, that this whole concept of Bored Apes, they're just missing the mark here. They're missing the big opportunity. I'm going to start with Jackson on this one, because I know that you have quite a bit to say.
I don't have any problem with Bored Apes. I think that I wouldn't pay $1 million for one, but it's cool that some people do. I guess for me, I just get really excited thinking about like the mass market opportunity. And one of the things about Bored Apes is that there's only 10,000. And when I look at tokens and I look at making applications that are utilizing tokens, I want to bring as many users as possible into that ecosystem. And part of the reason is, like I said, interoperability. So we created a game called Duro Dogs. And there's around 2 million NFTs in our game at this point. And there's no ceiling on how many could be created depending on how many players come and play. And part of what's really cool about NFTs in gaming is that, and this is already happening, is people are creating new games using these NFTs serving our audience. And so when I think about Bored Apes, I just think that they're missing an opportunity, because why would I want to build a game for 10,000 people when I could build a game for 10 million people? And so I'm just really looking for how can we help people, whether it's ourselves or our customers, create these NFT experiences that can reach the mass market. And I think that is what's going to lubricate this creator economy that's going to lead to things unlike anything we've ever seen before without these tools.
Sean, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, so I think when we think of Bored Apes, that's exactly what we're trying to deal with at ObjectLayer, is so that they have a JPEG that's unencrypted in the cloud. So you're basically back to Napster and peer-to-peer file sharing. So this is going to be why music people and everyone's not going to adopt this, right? Because basically you're going to put an unencrypted file in the cloud that anybody with a little bit of knowledge can pull down. So immediately that limits the use cases. You're immediately restricted to very select number of things that you see the market using right now. So what we've said is if you can encrypt that file, there's real value to that. All of a sudden, maybe there's a watermarked preview or a low-res preview so people can see it, but then the owner has something different, has an actual thing. So I think that's what they're sort of missing with that, is just this unencrypted file sitting up in the cloud.
Very good. Thank you, Sean. And Christopher, what are your thoughts on collectibles and NFTs and all of that?
Well, I don't want a Bored Ape NFT because you've been around apes that are really smelly, so I wouldn't want to redeem it for one, bored or not. The material value to what we've got is that I spent a lot of time, 25 years in the capital markets, doing a lot of innovation, fixing needs that are not currently served by current sorts of instruments. And the connection here that we made was that people who really, really need materials that are going to become scarcer and scarcer in demand are willing to basically pay for an option on a forward to have it, right? So the major difference here is if you're going to need gadolinium, samarium, and dysprosium in your manufacturing process, no matter what the picture is I put on my NFT, that's not the point. The people that are involved in this are substantively in need of the materials that we have. I would never do this in oil or copper or wheat. There are already deep liquid global markets for those. But we're dealing with something where we have a disproportionate amount of an incredibly valuable set of materials. And a lot of the people that want to buy those materials from us don't want to invest in the equity. They don't want to loan us money, but they do want access, and they're willing to prepay for it. And that's the huge value, is that we're allowing someone to participate in the company growth, and they are able to have a seat at the table in a substantive way of saying, we need you to prioritize zirconium production faster this year because we bought $20 million worth of that versus hafnium production, which you don't have to hurry up on because it's only needed in specialty needs. Whatever the point is, we're enabling people to have a voice in our production and how we get it done and how swiftly we get it done.
Very good. Thank you, Christopher. And Jack, what is it about NFTs? What fundamentally about them opens up new use cases that you cannot get without NFTs?
Well, this will answer both your last two questions, and my answer is cash flows. If you have the Mona Lisa, right, or you have King Tut's mask that has 300 ounces of gold in it, what do you do with it? Now, you could hide it in your room and just tell your friends about it, and they'd think you're pretty cool. But what most people do with it is they put it in the museum, right? And why? Because every person that pays $50 to get into the Louvre is going to go see the Mona Lisa, right? And so whatever museum the Mona Lisa is in is going to get increased cash flows. And so the owner of the Mona Lisa is going to also get a cut of those cash flows. And so if you have a Bored Ape, I don't know what that gets you. I mean, I guess there's some kind of bragging rights. But when you own a SlickDef token, which has Becky's definition of moderator on it, that's going to make cash flows. So in addition to being kind of cool, because Becky's kind of famous, that you own her definition of cash flows, moderator, and it's actually signed, but you also get to earn money while you own it. So I just look around and go, God, there's all these NFTs that people are buying because they're cool pictures, but moderator's going to have a cool picture, right? And you're going to earn cash flows. Simple.
Yeah, simple. Holger, what do you think?
Yes, so I think he's on the right idea that the Bored Apes are static, so they are really boring and they don't do anything. And okay, somebody has created this picture and that's it. So maybe he's earning money just on this. But why shouldn't we just take, because it's digital and you can refine, you can modify, this ape can do something, just maybe not try this with Mona Lisa, try to change it and refine it. I think, no, we should do this. But with electronic and our virtual goods, try to think of the ape could be a template, and you can enter something and the thing is doing something for you. And this is getting more creative, and then it adds value on top. And people, anybody who is able to refine and modify and create something different is in the game. And he can contribute for micropayments, whatever, how much this thing is of value. And the next step I love to see, because I have children, they try to enter coding, to learn coding. There is nothing like maybe you know Lego boxes and Lego bundles, and there's a map, and you can put things together just very easily, and you don't need anybody else. You don't have this in coding right now. The only thing I see is Jerry Chan with his robots idea to get people on gaming to learn code. But I think with Legos, if you have tokenized code in kind of Lego pieces, and you can just easily plug them together and they do a boring ape or whatever, I don't care. But then people can quite easily start learning code just in the early ages. I skipped it.
Very good. Yeah, so as you guys can see, there's so much more going on with tokens than Bored Apes, but I hope if you have Bored Apes, you made a lot of money with them. So Jackson, I know that you've mentioned interoperability several times already. Can you just explain to the audience what you mean by that when it comes to NFTs and tokens and why that brings a lot of value to the ecosystem?
Yeah, so to me, what's really, really cool about blockchain is that it can change the way that applications communicate. So today, if applications want to communicate, they have to communicate with one another. And so they have to set up channels to do that. The most popular way is an API. That can be expensive, though. And so if it's expensive for app A to communicate with app B, and then app B has to find a way to communicate with app C, and you can see how this limits the number of apps that can communicate. With blockchain, everyone can be plugged into the same source, which is the blockchain. And that means that users actually can become a bridge between applications. So, like for example, as a Duradogs player, all these different apps that are using Duradogs NFTs, they don't talk to one another. They're not setting up APIs that they're pinging of each other to figure out what's happening with the dogs and who owns what and yada, yada, yada. They're all just coordinating through the user on the blockchain. And so instead of apps having to sort of set up their own communications, every app is effortlessly connected to every single other application on the internet. Now, I don't know what that is ultimately going to mean, because it's an entirely new paradigm of digital communication. But we're just trying to, I guess, metaphorically scratch the surface with our dogs and just see where it goes. I think gaming is going to be really important because I think it's a vertical where there's a lot of competition, but at the same time, it's not that serious. And so it's a really good landscape for experimentation. But I think that these types of communication channels are going to really reshape how data flows across the internet in every vertical.
Yeah, Sean, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yes, I mean, I actually agree with a lot of that because it's pretty clever because you can put blockchain addresses into any web browser. So all of a sudden, I can move my credentials around as I see fit. And when we talk about encrypting data, it also means I can begin moving my stuff around. So if I buy music over here, I can just pick a handler or player of choice. I don't have to go to just where I bought it. So you can actually delayer where I'm buying something from with where I consume it and where I continue to enjoy it. Right now, we're in a world where I have to go into a walled garden, I buy my Apple movie, and it's stuck there. But exactly as Jackson's saying, with this credentialing, you're able to move it around, and all of a sudden the digital rights are maintained in perpetuity across the internet. And that to me, that means that data and the security becomes the interoperable layer.
Yeah, super interesting. And guys, for the sake of time, I'm going to move on just to a few different topics because we only have a few minutes left here. Talk to me about the importance of scalability with the blockchain that you are using to be building these tokens, and where some of the issues could occur if you are with a blockchain that is not ultimately scalable. So for this one, I'll start at the end here with Jack.
Scalability is super important for us because the most commonly used book in the world, well, it's either the Bible or the dictionary. And so obviously dictionaries get a ton of traffic. A good dictionary in the top 20 gets something like 500 million clicks per year. And when you add all that, and each one of them has about 10% market share. So when you pump that all up, we're talking billions. And then when you add Wikipedia, which is obviously naturally where we would go after that, is something like 10 to 100 times even more clicks. And so since our goal is to be the best dictionary in the world in terms of quality, I mean, that's the end goal. And same thing with encyclopedia, well, that's going to be a lot of traffic. And if we're moving around 7/10 of a penny to Becky every time someone likes her moderator definition, well, then it's got to scale. We're not going to be able to do that on 8 transactions per second.
Yep. Very good. And Christopher, I'm also going to throw in there the whole idea of on-chain versus off-chain.
Sure.
So if you can talk about that and scalability and wow us all.
Yeah, so the beautiful part about what we're doing, and a bit of background is important. I'm the only non-miner who is the CEO of a mining company. My background is literally in creating markets. I'm a market structure expert dork, which is really a sad thing to be, but I built futures exchanges, I've restructured clearinghouses, I've helped multiple countries build their exchanges, so I understand how to take things from illiquidity to liquidity. And that is a weird skill, but one that I've got, and it informs what we're doing. So the answer is right now, starting out a new market, scalability is rather unimportant. Each one of these tokens is $50,000. This is not a retail product, so it's an institutional product, and most people who buy them are going to hold on to them. Those who want to trade them are going to trade by appointment. But for those who are far-seeing, what we are doing is creating an entirely new market. I will put the London Metal Exchange out of business or buy it, depending upon my whim at the time. We are going to have an entirely new market that is structured somewhat jestingly, but not really. Futures were designed in a market vacuum that required that connectivity between future purchase and defraying cost and the spot variability, all the reasons we know why futures markets are created, but they were subject to the limitations of their time, the technology limitations of standing in front of each other and yelling at one another in funny colored jackets. We changed all that, we turned it electronic, and that's been fairly efficient, but what we're doing now as a financial primitive is far more efficient than any futures contract. It is a mix of an OTC bespoke contract and a centralized exchange. So right now, a lot of our investors are uncomfortable because this NFT, this blockchain nonsense that they think is crypto craziness. For them, it's a structured product that sits as a contract. For anyone else who's crypto native, we'll send it to your wallet, right? So we can do either, it doesn't matter, it's just a packaging mechanism. And as more and more hard rock miners issue these structures, which they will do once we issue ours, then we'll have an entirely new market and a new way for people to trade. You can go trade nickel right now in a futures market. You cannot trade samarium, gadolinium, or dysprosium, or yttrium on a futures market. You're going to trade it on my market.
Excellent. And Holger, talk to us about scalability The difference between
Yes.
off-chain?
So I think I love his mining background. So I think I'm also a miner, but I'm mining code out of thin air. Or maybe I just cut code from other people and refine it. And right now there is no really a marketplace for giving a single line or a bunch of lines of code a real price behind. And I think this will be the future. That we have, any company should have an idea what is the price of maybe not any single line, but pieces of code should have a price. And even these things can then be used, if it's, and must be a compliant product, can be used at the normal commodity markets maybe, and banks can hedge then, or fintech can hedge, or any tech can hedge because they have to spend money on code. But right now there is no hedge there. You cannot trade these products. And even CPU time is also something I think about to tokenize CPU time, cloud space, maybe timestamping we have on Bitcoin. We have logging. All these things, you find it in the big enterprise and banking industry and IT infrastructure. You find it, and people pay for it, but there's no price and no hedging possibility. And it can get to the smallest piece, and there you need microtransactions.
Very good, thank you. Hope that wasn't too technical for you guys. And if you want more technicalities tomorrow, there is a session all about tokens and which platform you should use and more technical stuff tomorrow. But anyway, so we have just 3 minutes left, and the title of our panel is Future of Blockchain Tokens. So Jackson, please, can you give us the future vision that you have for digital collectibles in this whole exciting world when it comes to tokens and NFTs?
Sure. Have any of you heard of Harry Potter?
Yes.
So there was a really popular Harry Potter game that came out recently. And, this is something that happens every few years. There's a new Harry Potter game, and the Harry Potter rights holders, they really protect this IP, and they make sure that every game that comes out is really fantastic. And that's kind of been the approach for these big IP holders in the past. I think that what I look at, though, is people who buy like a wand at the Harry Potter shop, and they put on a robe, and they go out with their friends, and this is adults who do this, and they pretend that they're wizards. I mean, that's what they do. They call it LARPing. I think that the future of entertainment is going to be, instead of I go and I buy a piece of plastic, my wand is an NFT. My representation of myself as a wizard is an NFT. And it's an NFT that evolves over time as my sort of career as a wizard or a witch progresses. And the people who create the content are not going to be these big, AAA studios. Instead, everyone can be a creator, and you're going to have an infinite stream of content coming out where you can live, if you want, the entire rest of your life pretending that you're a wizard, whether it's on your phone, desktop, console, AR, VR, everywhere. I mean, that's the metaverse, that's Web3, and I think that digital collectibles and this sort of layer that Sean was talking about of your assets and your identity moving across applications, that's going to be how it comes to be.
One of your smiles making me smile, Sean, while he's talking about Harry Potter. But anyway, can you give us the future of data distribution?
Right, so I think that's what I've said, sort of alluded to a couple times, the concept that currently people have to make a trade-off between being able to communicate or having data security. And so what we're saying is actually by having a really elegant solution, you can have both. I can be secure, I can maintain my rights in perpetuity, I'll know what's going on with my data, but I can still communicate it. So now I can pick how I communicate it, I can decide what I disclose to somebody, and I no longer have to make that trade-off. So we've been finding enterprise is surprisingly interested. We thought it would be the media side of this that would take off first, but actually enterprise users are quite interested in the fact that they can now communicate securely between multiple organizations without having to all be on the same system.
Amazing, so concise, love it. Okay, in the 20 seconds we have left, I'm gonna go down the line. Future of commodities, digital trading, tell me. I'll start with Holger.
So my future is clear. So I think nobody should anymore buy software silos. They should just create their entire software in the composable way. get these tokens into a game, and let's refine the tokens by others if you don't be able to code them better. And so the quality of those tokens as infrastructure, whatever they are used to, these will be way better than what we today have. Yeah.
Christopher.
Futures exchanges will become museums, or they'll be trading my NFTs.
And Jack.
Hopefully you caught Kurt Wolkert Jr.'s speech on money. He gives a great speech on money and Bitcoin. And I'm going to make a prediction really quick. Kurt will be successful in this sector. And I believe that so much that I'm literally investing in Kurt. And now you can too. So we are today releasing this thing called Celebrity Word Auction. And you can go to our site, press the gavel button, and you can bid on Kurt's definition of bananas, which he has donated to all of us. And the winning bidder by Friday will own Kurt's definition of bananas. And like I said, if you don't invest in Kurt's next Bitcoin company, you can at least try and invest in Kurt's definition of bananas, because I promise you it will be valuable.
I love it. Kurt's actually the one who's moderating the token panel tomorrow, so you guys better go see him talk. Thank you so much. It was so much fun, guys. Thank you. You're all amazing. And have an amazing rest of the show, guys. Enjoy the drinks after this.
Thank you, too.